All right, folks, let me get this. Bunch of people trying to take notes. Actually, okay, everyone, hear me fine? Just a minute of introduction. I'm just going to let people rip on whatever they want to ask me. So, uh, my name's Tom Matlack. I've been uh, involved in search kind of from the beginning. One of my best friends is Will Thorndike, who's one of the kind of pioneer investors in search. Just a quick kind of minute on who I am, what I've done. Um, I like to tell my students that I've had four phases to my career. The first quarter was primarily as a temp and a drunk. The second quarter was as an operator. I was the CFO of a large media company that took public and sold. The third quarter was as a venture capitalist. I raised a venture capital fund in two funds, one in '99, one in 2000. Uh, and the fourth quarter, starting in about 2010, was in search. And so I invested in probably, I don't know, 25 search funds. Um, and they were pretty much all over the map, mostly traditional search, couple self-funded searches. I did do a deal in Mexico City that for a while did very well and then did very not so well. But as a result of that, I kind of was one of the pioneers in investing in Latin America. And even though I don't speak Spanish, everyone wanted to pitch me deals in Latin America. So I did a deal in the Dominican Republic that did very well. And I've also done a deal in Guatemala that's done very, very well. Along the way, I noticed that there was, at least in traditional search, um, there was a kind of a misalignment in terms of how CEO performance equity was calculated because it was based on a very high IRR, and because of the law of big numbers. If you're ahead of the curve on a big IRR, you kind of want to get out because it gets harder and harder. So the incentive was for searchers to sell quickly, which as an investor is exactly the wrong answer because very often you've done all this work to back a searcher, find a company, try and teach them how to be a good CEO, right the ship if the company wasn't going so well. Um, and so you want a kind of longer hold period to get a longer MOIC. And so the fact that searchers were selling too quickly was the wrong thing in my mind. So, anyways, I came up with a formula that hopefully incented searchers to hang in for longer, which basically reduced the IRR after the fifth year. And so, which was in the traditional search world, that was like 9 years ago. In the traditional search world, that was widely adopted. It's called the Matlack formula. God only knows why. But anyhow, so those are some of the things I've had up to. Got three kids, 31, 29, and 20. Got a dog who's sitting over here. I've always been an athlete. Love to get out in nature. Most recently, I've been a very avid trail runner and ultra runner. Uh, love to ride my bike. Um, yeah, so those are some things about me. So, anyways, let's just do this. I'm not sure right now. I get 23 people, which is more manageable. I thought there's a bunch of people that signed up, so if it stays this size, we can kind of make it a little less formal. But just for like Zoom etiquette, it'd be great if you'd raise your virtual hand. You can ask about anything. Um, and like one follow-up, but until we kind of get through everybody, like let's leave it at that. Also, just to kind of make it fun, I thought it'd be good to just say who you are, where you're from, um, and just for kicks, who your favorite artist is. So musician, writer, actor, poet, whatever. So who wants to go first? Lucas, go ahead.
For an introduction, hi, I'm Lucas. I'm from Belmont, Massachusetts, which is right outside Boston. I'm a current Wesleyan student. We met a couple times at um, the Gordon Career Center events. Um, and as for my favorite artist, I think I have to. My gut instinct is Led Zeppelin. I think they're just
There
like
you go. I
it's
like it.
like you have the four like greatest musicians in their respective like instrument, or like the great one of the greatest vocalists of all time, probably the greatest guitarist of all time, and they just came together and they made music. And so it's like that's my gut instinct. As for the question, this is a question about the business finance and life program. Um, my question was is that the BFL program seems like very athlete oriented, and you are like a big fan of athletics and you're an athlete yourself, former rower. And that makes sense given that it started last year as like a conversation with a bunch of coaches that turned into this like ad hoc program. And it makes sense that it makes sense that it's very athlete oriented. But I wanted to ask if there's any major difference for between like the program for athlete students and non-athlete students. I take, exercise seriously, but I'm not myself on a team. So, like, I wanted to ask if there's any major differences, any gaps between potential non-athletes and athletes who are attending the program.
Cool, got it. So for others, so I teach this course at Wesleyan. It's called Finance and Life, and uh, Lucas is talking about the application for this coming summer. It's actually going to be really cool because we're actually having Pacific Lake, the largest search fund investor, is going to train the students, and then we're going to get each one of them is going to, as well as taking the course, is going to have an internship at a search fund. So I will be circling back to the search fund community to help me place everybody. So Lucas, just in terms of like athlete, non-athlete, yeah, it just happened to be that like last year was an ad hoc summer where we just had the athletes. Like that absolutely has no bearing on what will happen next summer.
Mhm.
I think for me, like I have an affinity for athletes because I'm an athlete.
Mhm.
But we're very consciously open the applications to everybody. And like there is one question on the application about your biggest achievement, whether it be leadership, athletic, I
Mhm.
think it's artistic or whatever.
Yes,
And
artistic.
I can't remember the categories, but I'm really hoping that we have a very diverse group. Like, and one of the things I'm in the application process, I'm like, and the admissions committee is going to look for is making sure that we have a diverse group in terms of men, women, athletes, not athletes, all different backgrounds, because that will make it better for all of us.
Mhm.
And so, it's just kind of random that it started that way, because I was talking to a coach, but it has absolutely no bearing on, who gets in and what the experience will be like this coming summer. So
Great.
thanks for the question. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, who else wants to ask a question? You're gonna have to help me with the pronunciation. Saye?
No, you're good. Shay.
Say it again.
Yeah, Shay.
Say,
Yeah,
Shay.
there you go.
Okay,
Yes.
where are you from, man?
I'm Nigerian, Lagos, Nigeria.
Oh,
But
wow. Okay.
I'm in New York right now.
Okay. All right. All right. And who's your favorite artist?
Oh, Burner Boy.
Burner Boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's a big Afrobeat star. He currently got nominated for the Grammys. He's a very controversial artist too, but huge, very huge star. I don't know if anyone's
Cool.
room knows Burner Boy, but yeah. Um, I stumbled into ETA just, when I was about wrapping my B school at Pace University in downtown Manhattan here. And created someone told us like, hey, go on search funder. So I created a search funder I come from the background of software. I'm a software engineer doing writing code and was looking at how technology, create impact in small businesses. And very quickly I started I co-founded a AI company focused on automating work as we know it. And part of our acquisition strategy, we were focused on IT companies, support businesses, and someone told us about MSPs. And so part of our acquisition strategy was to start thinking about acquiring an MSP, primarily for three key reasons. One is to be able to really deepen our technology into their workflows. We already understand the wedge we're coming through, which is pretty much the help desk side, because we know a lot of MSPs serve largely the small businesses, just like how big cloud players like Amazon serve enterprise. So we were focused on small, medium businesses.
Okay,
And
what's the
so
question? Get to the question.
yeah. I'm about to get that. Look, so the question is, as a VC on your end, because I read your profile and then also as an ETA, do you think it makes sense to marry acquiring, IT companies? This is kind of our acquisition strategy from a GTM perspective, or find a way to partner. So that's where I'm currently being challenged right now, just like figuring that out.
So I'm sorry. Say the question again. Is it better to acquire or partner?
Yeah.
And what are the type of companies again?
MSPs, managed service providers.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't really know that market very well, honestly. And so it really depends on what the economics look like. So what are the valuations of those companies?
Oh, the traditional MSP is more or less like 3.5, 3.7x of their EBITDA.
Yeah, so why wouldn't you buy them? What's the downside of buying them?
Honestly, I'm just probably thinking too hard in my head. I just want some clarity. There is no the downside. I would say is obviously a lot of this. They are also like considered small businesses. Obviously, everything we still needs to go through diligence. So I'm just like, okay, do you want to get into the murkiness, or just focus on your
Are they
software?
are they recurring revenue businesses?
Yes, they are because they typically sell licenses provided by the likes of Microsoft to small businesses.
And
So yeah,
how long are the contracts?
7 years minimum, or the lifetime of the
I don't
business.
know. That
Because
sounds like, I mean, if you're buying a recurring revenue with 7-year license time at 3 or 4x, like, I don't know. That sounds pretty good to me. I mean, and you're going to bring AI to them to automate them further. Is that what it is?
yeah, and then sort of use that as a wedge to provide more services. Because we're in the world of AI, a lot of small businesses are asking, how do I use AI? So we effectively just increases our time, but effectively increasing the value of the MSP that we buy today. Because the people that currently own MSPs, they don't even know how to execute on that front. Because they are from a demographic point of view, they are pretty much in their late 50s and just looking to sell.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's a lot of detail that we don't have time to get into, but like just on the face of it, I would buy. I would definitely buy. Like it's like sounds like an attractive market to go after, especially if you think you have an AI tool that's going to increase the revenue and or the margin of the business once you acquire it. Like that seems like a no-brainer.
Awesome. Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you for just
Ben,
helping
go
me.
ahead. Oh, you're welcome, man. Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, and particularly interested in your perspective on ETA markets outside the US, given your experience in LATAM. It seems to me that Australia is much where the US was about a decade ago. Not a lot of competition in the lower mid market, much lower multiples, but Australia's economy typically follows the US, so I see a massive opportunity for US investors. What do you see as the main obstacles when pitching American investors to invest abroad? And as someone who's done this yourself, how would you recommend overcoming those obstacles?
Yeah, so I've actually talked to people. I can't remember exactly who it was. I've talked to both investors and searchers in Australia. I think maybe one in New Zealand as well. So I definitely the market's growing. I mean, there are definitely people doing ETA in Australia. Um, so I guess a couple things. One is, you know, if there's local investors, it's going to be easier. And in fact, like the reason I actually looked at a couple of deals not that long ago that I had been visiting Australia and New Zealand. I love your country. And I was like, well, wow, this would be kind of cool. And I just couldn't get my head around like the time zone. Like it was like so crazy, like it was so off. Um, I just couldn't get to the finish line on it. So I think that it's definitely possible to get U.S. investors interested in developing ETA markets. There's these guys Ambit out of South Africa who have raised, I think they're on their third fund, basically on that premise. Um, there's a bunch of others too. So I think it's possible. I think they're always going to want to have local investors, local board members. Um, so I think you're going to need to do both. In terms of like, and again, my general experience is in Latin America, so it may or may not be the same. Um, but in those markets, what we found was, in general, it was the education process in terms of the business owners to understand what the hell we were doing, and build credibility with them. And so the process of actually doing the deal took a lot longer. But when we got the deal done, the valuations were way lower and they were much more attractive deals. And so we were able to buy things like really cheap. And so they were really good deals. It just the sweat to get to that point, to get to a closed transaction, did take longer. Um, so I guess my advice would be make sure you have like some strong local support. Um, and then, you know, see if you can build some network, back to US investors. Um, but I think that will be challenging ultimately. And it may be that you can go to, some of the funds. There are funds institutional investors who are explicitly investing internationally. And that might be an easier way than trying to find like individual US investors. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, a lot of sense. Thanks a lot, Tom.
All right. Nasri.
Hey, Tom, thank you
All
so
right.
much for doing this. My name's Nasri. I'm from Honduras, actually, right next to Guatemala. So
There you
uh,
go.
cool
Wow.
to hear you invest in you invested in Guatemala. Um, my favorite artist, and no shame here, is Shakira. So
Wow. All right. I like it. I like it.
yeah, Spotify says I listen to like 25 of her songs. So that's the data doing the talking.
Cool.
Um,
So what are you doing in Honduras, man?
no, actually, sorry, I'm in the Boston area. So I'm in the
Oh,
greater
okay. All right,
Boston area.
great.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right, you're
just
right down the,
originally, yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
Dedham. Where are you?
I'm just on the border near Methuen, but I'm on the Salem, New Hampshire side.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Yeah, but
All right.
I went to school at Bentley
Okay, got it. Okay.
undergrad. And so, yeah, I'm more of an experience searcher. So I have like a decade of experience in B2B SaaS. So a bunch of like venture-backed startups in the B2B SaaS space and e-commerce. And then most recently, I was at PepsiCo, where I helped build out their a significant platform there. So I'm looking to acquire I'm interested in something in the B2B like SaaS e-commerce space. I'm not sure if that's too narrow, but I wanted to kind of get your opinion on like, have you seen a lot of reps in people potentially buying B2B SaaS companies that may be venture backed? They're not quite a distressed asset, but they might not be growing on a VC timeline, but they're still decent companies. So I'm curious to see if like how much opportunity do you see in that space? And then if you see opportunity, like in the search world, like which investors would particularly know SaaS well versus like laundromats and car washes and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a two-parter. Like, do you see
Yeah, so
opportunity and
yeah,
then
so
investors?
yeah, so there's a ton of activity in SaaS. So I think uh I don't know if you've read my most recent post on the Yale study or whatever. I said in there, the two guys that I'm still backing, both of them have built out platforms. One is actually Juan in Guatemala. The other is Peter Flick, who just raised a fund to invest in SaaS. So like he's out of Phoenix, Arizona, actually. He had a company called Remarkable Health that he sold. So there's a lot of focus on SaaS. I think there's actually people are trying to like figure out the AI impact, honestly. So like there's a certain amount of like fear, I guess, around that. I am not a technologist, so like I'm not the right guy to ask about that.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I've not seen a lot of kind of VC portfolio dumping into search. I just think it's kind of tough in terms of they're mostly going to be looking for returns that are going to make it right. The pricing is going to be hard. And it's just the classic search playbook is like go find the founder who really doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, but they build a great company despite themselves and like make friends with them and preempt an auction and be able to like get a good price because they love you.
Yeah.
And like a VC backed business is just gonna, I mean, even if they are struggling, if they decide to sell, they're gonna like make it as slick as possible, hire a banker, a broker, try and jack the price up. And it's just gonna be really hard to get good value there unless it's like something that is somewhat distressed and if for some reason you feel like you can turn it around in a way that they don't really understand or can't see. Like that's kind of the only scenario I could see. So I think you're probably better off trying to find, companies that have SaaS companies that have been bootstrapped or don't have like big time VC money involved. Because I just think it's going to be harder for you to negotiate with basically a VC. If that
Okay.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying never, but I just don't see that as being a great avenue, honestly.
W-
But as
Would
far
your
as like as
answer
far good.
would you feel differently if it was you're buying out another PE, if it's PE backed?
Yeah, probably. And there are always those situations where like somebody's at the end of a fund, or like, they're just kind of sick of it and they want to, get rid of it. So that's probably a little better. Um, but anyways, in terms of the other question, because I'm seeing a bunch of other people with their hands stacking up here, but um, there's a bunch of institutional investors who are focused on SaaS. It's actually kind of, I would say, a pretty major area of the traditional search marketplace at this point. Um, like I said, I think they're going through a reevaluation of that to some extent, but Pacific Lake, et cetera. I mean, Anacapa, all these guys certainly have a pretty decent exposure to SaaS. So I wouldn't rule out really anyone. Um, so I think as institutional investors certainly will do some of the kind of Main Street businesses as well, but like a lot of them have exposure to SaaS, and a lot of them have made a shit ton of money in SaaS. So outside of the AI concern, they're still very much looking for it. So,
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate
all right,
it.
man. All right, let's see if we can try through some more of these. Is it Vinod?
Yeah, it's been out, but you can call me Vinny.
Vinod, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Okay, go ahead.
No worries, no worries. Yeah. So I'm a self-funded searcher. I was in Reading. I moved to Atlanta to pursue the search full time. So I'm also a mid-career searcher. So I left the corporate world. I ran investment operations and technology operations for a large asset management firm. So I wanted to acquire and build industrial services company. So that's the focus area
Cool,
for healthcare
cool.
services. So particularly on the power and the data center power structures and infrastructure support for that. So,
Who's your favorite artist?
oh, yeah, I missed that question. Denzel Washington. I think there's
There
no
you go.
movie of him that I
Okay.
don't like.
All
So,
right.
so,
All right. Cool.
so,
All right. I'm with you. All right. So what's your question?
so my question is in the long-term investor. So as a self-funded searcher, I thought I would acquire a smaller related businesses at the first onset and then subsequently acquire more as a roll-up strategy in this industrial services space to be more of an industrial services partner for these multi-plant organizations or multi-data center organizations. So what's the best approach to stack to make sure that the subsequent deals are funded through an investor network, not the primary itself, but the subsequent ones for the roll-ups? Because obviously I'm
What do
going to
you
tap.
mean?
Yeah.
So
The first,
you want to make sure that the investors in your original deal are going to be willing to invest in subsequent deals?
if possible, but I thought I could buy a smaller entity with an SBA financing directly and
Okay.
then sort of roll it into the subsequent larger acquisitions per se. So
Well, I mean, I think so. I have two answers there. Number one is like, how good is the first deal, right? If the first deal is really good, you're going to have a lot easier time convincing, outside investors to
yeah,
invest in deal number two and deal number three. Okay. So like just make absolutely sure that the first deal is killer. So be really picky about the first one.
yeah,
Um, and the second one is like the ideal scenario is the first deal is so good, it's throwing off so much cash that you can recap and you don't need anyone. Like
yeah,
that's the long-term hold strategy
yeah, long-term hold strategy.
is like basically like let's do one equity check. There's just one. And then let's only buy new stuff when we have the ability to like self-finance it. No more equity through cash flow and recapping
Cash
debt.
flow.
Okay. So like that in terms of like, the mass, that's the best path. But if it's a small first deal and you want to accelerate, and you can't self-finance it and you need outside investors,
Yeah,
you just need that track record. That's the thing. Like you need to be able to say, like, I bought this company really well. I've like managed the shit out of it. Like I've doubled EBITDA, whatever it is. Um, and I have another one that I can roll right in. And here's the longer term plan of how this platform is going to expand.
got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right, good luck, man. All right.
Thank you.
Is it Chuck's?
Yes, Chuck's also from Nigeria, but I
All
live
right.
in Amsterdam. Yeah. So it's
Wow, look at
11 p.m.
that.
here. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's a devotion, dude. Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so a bit about me very quickly. Hi Shay, I see you. A bit about me quickly. So I was a software engineer, and I worked in investment banking, and I did my MBA at ESA, then I moved to Amsterdam. So I work in finance now. And
Okay.
then by the side, because combining my experience in software and then finance, I built something. So it's like an analysis tool that makes it like see it as Excel macros on steroids that helps you analyze deals like 10 times faster in Excel. So there's no AI because the AI tools sometimes they hallucinate and stuff. It's just pure calculations with macros and investment analysis. So I had some classmates who were searching, and I was using this to help them search, and eventually thought like share the tool with them so they could do it without me. And they now said, hey, other searchers might find this very useful because normally it might take you 4 or 5 hours to quickly review a deal to see if it's worth going forward or not. But with this tool, you can do it in less than an hour. So I think the question I had is, you've done this for a really long time. For searchers who would have a bit of finance background, no finance background, or a lot of finance background, how do they, will I say, review deals quickly? And what will you recommend on a way on how to go to market? Because I've seen it's very valuable, but how do I reach the people to help them move faster on that deep deal analysis? Yeah.
Who's your favorite artist?
Naval, I know he's not an artist, but his writings are quite philosophical. So
What is
Naval
he?
Ravikant, yeah, it's yeah.
Is he a soccer player? What is he?
No. It's some investor, some VC in Silicon Valley, but he writes.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
It's
okay.
Naval
I was trying to get
Ravikant.
you use your like other side of your brain. That's okay. It's okay
No, but
though.
this the second guy. So like it's like I have two actually. Second is Taleb. I've read all his Incesto books. Taleb, he
Okay,
helps
okay,
dictate
okay,
bullshit from
okay.
a mile away. So yeah.
So I mean, I have no idea about your tool that you use on using macros on Excel to evaluate deals. But I guess like anything else, like if you could get it out to a group of beta users,
Yeah.
and get their feedback, from there, if it's actually a value, I would. There's lots of business schools and other networks that you can get into to try and sell the product. Um, so it really comes down to like how much value is it really? Um,
Okay.
I understand that you're saying it's valuable. I have no idea.
Okay.
But if it is a tool that actually allows searchers to shorten the period of time, whether they're using interns or whatever else they're doing, to evaluate deals more quickly, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into finding the right deal in a search. So if you can accelerate that process, like that's super valuable. So I think people would probably be willing to, pay you something for it. I don't
Okay.
know if there's a real business there, but like you could certainly try.
Okay.
It sounds cool. Yeah, I would give it a shot, but I would definitely like build a a cohort of beta users
Okay.
and like get their feedback, like a focus group, and like even
Yeah.
ask them how much would you pay for this, right? Um,
Okay.
and then go
Okay.
from there. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Aaron.
Hi, Tom. My name's Aaron, freshman at Wesleyan, interested in the BFL program.
Oh, nice
Favorite
man.
artist, I'd have to say Timothy Chalamet. He's a native New York,
Nice,
like myself.
nice.
He's just so talented in all the movies he's in. Anyways, I have more of a philosophical question for you.
Yeah, go
So
for it, man.
read some of your LinkedIn articles, and one of them focused on you emphasized taking risks when you're young and not being afraid of failure in order to be successful in the business world. So I'm wondering, how are you able to develop that mindset where you're just comfortable in any high stakes situation and you're able to not fear rejection?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot in the class, and I talk about it a lot in a lot of stuff I blabber on about in on LinkedIn, which is that I really believe in all things, like including my business career. It kind of comes down to a growth mindset, and like in a growth mindset, you need to fail a lot in order to like and the whole idea of a growth mindset is you want to become the best version of yourself, and the best version of yourself is like unique to you. Um, and the only way you get there, if you're always like clinging, to have like the perfect, transcript and the perfect record, you're never going to get there. Um, so it's a matter of like having the courage to put yourself in situations where most likely you're going to fall flat on your face, and then you can learn what you did wrong. Um, and so I think it's a matter of like getting to the point. I mean, I think probably the post you're talking about where you really see that like these opportunities like have value, like in math and finance, options absolutely have value in a way that we can actually mathematically calculate. And so I just took the view that like my life is the same way. It's like, and I finally got to the point where I was like, I have in the beginning of my career, I have nothing to lose. So like it's kind of like heads I win, tails I'm no worse off. So like I should just like collect, as many coin flips as I possibly can. And at some point I'm gonna start winning. And so that's kind of my advice in general is like, if you're 19 or 20 years old and you're trying to figure out like the rest of your life, good luck to you. You're not going to. You actually have to go out and live. At least for me, I mean, I said at the top and I say all the time, like I started out as a temp. Like I did nothing productive until I was like 25. And it turned out all right for me. Um, so I would just encourage, you take risks. And I guess the other thing, if you've been reading my stuff is like I'm like deeply, deeply contrarian in that like the only way that I've ever accomplished anything in life is by like going the opposite direction of everybody else. It's like if everyone else is going left, go right, like see what's over there. Because in the investment world, like the whole point is that if you do what everyone else is and you follow them like lemmings, like your returns are not going to be good. the only time that your returns are actually going to be outstanding is if if you see something that no one else sees, and you're willing to be, deeply contrarian. And so in your career, like, I also encourage that. It's like, yeah, everyone wants to go be an investment banker. Maybe that's the right thing for you, but I would say 9 times out of 10 it's probably not. It's kind of a particular kind of person for whom that's a good fit, and it's for most people. We'll go through it in the class, but like, there's a whole world out there of other opportunities. And I would just really encourage you to go find those other opportunities and like try it out and be willing to fail.
Thanks for the wisdom.
All right, man. Will.
Hey Tom, how's it going on? I'm from Rumson, New Jersey. I'm a member of the football team. I'm a sophomore here at Wesleyan, and I guess
Oh,
I have
nice.
a question for you. I'm definitely interested in the BFL program. So my two questions would be, I suppose. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, my favorite artist would be Robert Frost. So I guess I have
Nice.
two questions for you. I guess as a young person starting out who's not really fully aware of what path they want to take, what suggestions do you have for someone in that position? And additionally, sort of to cover like the leadership aspect of the course, like what aspects of leadership do you think you can't teach no matter how hard you try that are sort of just naturally instilled in individuals?
So, number one, like, if you think you know what you're gonna do and you think you have it all figured out, you don't at your age. So, like, just accept that and like go find a bunch of stuff to try out and do your best. And like I said before, be willing to fail. In terms of like the leadership question, the thing I try to like coach the CEOs who I mentor all the time, is the best CEOs like truly embrace humility. They are truly servant leaders. It's not about them. And so that's, to me, like the pinnacle of leadership that is, a lot of people miss the point. And in a corporate context, the searchers, the CEOs that have done the best have realized that their success is dependent upon recruiting a great management team who's like honestly better and smarter than they are, for sure. Who then in turn recruit a second level of management who's better and smarter than the first layer of management. And their only real job is to keep that whole group of people moving in the right direction. Setting the framework, being the inspiration, and always giving them the credit, not yourself. When it becomes about the leader, like, the organization is in trouble. If you look, there's a really famous book called Good to Great, where Jim Collins went through and he looked at all the data through 2 economic cycles of public companies and tried to isolate who performed the best over 2 economic cycles, and went to try and figure out what was extraordinary about them. And he identified several things, but one of the things was those companies had servant leaders, had leaders that truly embraced the idea of humility. So I would definitely encourage you to like think about that. It isn't necessarily something you can teach, but it's a characteristic of all super high performing organizations.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, you're welcome, man. Oscar, you're on mute. Oscar, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Can you
There you
hear
go.
me? Okay, very
There you
good.
go. Okay.
Thank you very much. Hi, Tom. Actually, I'm Oscar from Italy, and I'm an engineer who's become an investor. I've studied the CFA program, and now basically my interest is primarily about finance. And actually came into the ETA movement almost by chance because, I just speculated about the fact that some small and medium enterprises could have idiosyncratic risk which could be priced in, and therefore I started, I searched the web and found out the ETA movement, and actually have a rather simple or maybe complicated question about investing in small and medium enterprises. How do you exactly assess the risk? Because I believe that different companies can have different degrees of risk depending on many factors. And so, how do you assess how risky a small company is and what the required return should be on the investment.
Oscar, who's your favorite artist?
Well, I think Ozzy Osbourne.
Really? Wow, that's a good one. So I think about it very differently, honestly. So throughout my career, so like I said, I ran a venture capital firm for 10 years and then have been involved in ETA, even though I'm somewhat retired at this point, for another 15 years. So over that period, I've probably invested, I don't know, 50 companies or something, probably more. So my assessment of risk, I basically come at it from the perspective of, from a domain expertise basis, I don't really know much. I'm a generalist. I'm a finance guy, and so I will definitely dig into what I understand about the finances of the particular company. Um, you know, questions around recurring revenue and margin and management, all that stuff. But ultimately, to me, it's all about the person. It's all about the leader of the organization. And so every investment decision I ever made in my life was an investment based on my belief and faith in a human being. So I back a searcher, I back a founder of a VC, of a startup, whatever it is. It's based on my desire to be a partner with the person in front of me. And so that's always the most important judgment, is who is the person? Because the person is the one who's going to have to adjust when things go wrong. And so, yeah, of course, like ultimately, I invested in a bunch of companies in Latin America. I invested in a bunch of media companies, a bunch of technology companies of a certain kind. And so, like, I definitely have data in my head about like what makes a good and bad company, what makes a good and bad investment risk, about, you know, all the financial parameters. But to me, it's always about the human first. And that's the judgment I'm always making. Is like, who's going to run this business, and do I believe that they're going to be able to provide, you know, the leadership to build a team, to build the product, to build sales and marketing, to listen to what it is I have to say, and be a partner to me. So that's ultimately always the most important question.
Okay, so basically you think that ultimately risk is unquantifiable because basically it's primarily belief in the person, in the CEO, rather than something about the numbers.
No, it's not. I mean, I look at a deal like everyone else, but like that X factor is like the overriding one.
Okay.
So I'll throw out plenty of deals that I'm like, I really don't want to invest in that industry. I don't want to buy at that price. It's too expensive, whatever it is. But if I don't believe in the person that I'm investing in, then I'm not going to do the deal, even if it's the greatest deal ever.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tom.
All right. William.
Hey, Tom. I'm originally from Donegal in Ireland, but I'm sitting out here on the west coast of LA. Longer story for some other time. Favorite artist, I'm going to give a little plug out to my friend Alex Dupree, who's based down in Austin. He's a poet and a songwriter in the kind of Townes Van Zandt mold. So anyone who's listening, go check out my friend Alex. He's a fantastic talent. Tom, quick question for you. If you think about the search model in the last kind of 5 years and the different models that are out there, self-funded versus, going to a search firm, how have the risks and upsides of the different models changed in the last 5 years? And if you had a searcher who's thinking about getting into this, what are the gating questions about the right model for searchers today?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if the question is relative returns, I don't know what they are, honestly. But to me, so I don't know if you saw like the post on the Yale data that kind of like I kind of shot my wad in terms of where we are. The central issue in the search ecosystem right now is that we have an explosion of capital, right? And so we have, I think it's like a third of $1 billion coming into the traditional search ecosystem every year. And so that's actually a problem. I mean, it's a as a searcher, like it's easier to raise money. That's good as a searcher, but it's a problem. The fundamental problem I see is that what has made search successful historically is that you take a searcher who's really smart, um, but doesn't necessarily know how to be a CEO right off the bat. They buy an unbreakable company at a good price, and they surround themselves with really smart mentors who help them figure out how to be a great CEO. And that last piece is like falling apart because you can't possibly, if you're trying to invest a bunch of capital and invest in 100 or 200 searchers, you're not possibly going to be able to mentor all those CEOs.
Right.
So to me, the critical question, that I would say if you're a searcher is kind of assess like radical self-honesty about your level of proficiency as a CEO. And who is it that you're going to rely upon to mentor you once you buy the company? Is it who's your board? Who's your CEO coach? Do you have a really good peer network, whether it's YPO or someplace else, where you can bounce stuff off in real time as off other CEOs? So to me, like that's the special sauce, and like to the extent that returns are falling apart in the ecosystem, that's why. I mean, everyone and their brother can like raise money for a search, so like the talent is definitely being diluted.
Right.
But ultimately, if you have great mentorship, I think most smart people can figure out how to be a good CEO. Certainly with all the volume, that there's certain industries that are getting picked over, so perhaps the entry point is getting more pricey, which will also have a negative effect on returns. But I don't, whether you're traditional search, self-funded search, search fund accelerator, whatever the hell it is, I don't really care. What I would want for you is like make absolutely sure that you have the support you need. Like that to me is the critical question. It often comes in the form of an investor, but it doesn't necessarily. I mean, there's a bunch of like really great search fund CEO coaches out there, so I would like investigate that as well. But that's to me like that's the critical question, apart from even the format of the search.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, Matteo.
Hey Tom, thank you so much for having us today. To give you a little bit of context on my background. Well, actually, before I do that, my favorite artist is J. Cole. Um, if you know who that is.
Nice.
And to give you a little bit of context on my background, I spent 4 years at Amazon Web Services and technology sales, and then I spent a year at a startup, and then I'm a first year MBA at Kellogg. And I actually wrote my missions essays on search. I'm only planning to do search. I'm not trying to recruit into any of the typical career paths that MBAs typically do. And to piggyback off of the question that was just asked is, from your experience of being in the asset class, I'm sure you have some perspective on which investors are the best investors that are going to give you that type of mentorship that you're looking for. And one of the privileges I do have, just having focus on this one thing, is I have time to sort of build those relationships. And then also it being Kellogg, the investors typically do come to campus as well. So if you're willing, I would love to share your opinion on which investors are your favorite.
Who have you been talking to?
The typical ones, Anacapa, Trilogy. There's some new ones that from Mexico that I like named Ventura. Some family offices like M2O. Um, so
Yeah, so I mean, I know all of them. So
I
like I'm
figured you
not gonna
would.
like I'm not gonna like kind of badmouth anyone, but so I guess I would say I'd make a general comment. Like the bigger they are, the harder it's gonna be for them to actually have a meaningful relationship with you. I mean, kind of independent of what they actually tell you. Like,
I'll
so,
say your dream.
you know, right. So like, I would just keep that in mind. And like, it's okay. Like, are you thinking about doing a traditional search?
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing traditional
So it's
search.
okay if you have like, a big guy. I'm not gonna badmouth anyone, but a big guy in the cap table. You just got to make sure that there are other people in your cap table who you can rely on, right? And so, like the ultimate question to me always, and like as an investor, like what I was always looking for is like I want the relationship with the CEO where like they're gonna call me in the middle of the night. Like I'm the one, right? And so you need to know who is that man or woman who you're gonna call in the middle of the night when things really go fucking bad, right? And like
Mhm.
you have no idea like what to do next. And you need to really feel like both trust and also confidence that that person knows what the hell they're talking about and can give you good advice. And so in that regard, I would say like either look for individual investors who you think highly of, or look for the smaller firms. There's several who are kind of in the I'll call it like 25 to $100 million range that you're going to get more attention, and they're going to be super selective, and so like they're going to be very picky in terms of who they actually invest in. But once they do, they're going to be much more hands-on. Um, so just make sure that in your cap table you have a handful of people who you really believe are going to add value in your heart of hearts, and that's probably not going to be like the super huge institutional guys. Um, And if you want to again, if you want to shoot me an email offline, I can kind of give you more color. I'm just not going to
Yeah,
put it on a live stream.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah. So I'm happy to like share some further insights of who I know, what my experiences have been.
Okay. And if can I ask one more question
Yeah,
regarding
go
that?
ahead. Yeah.
In terms of your previous comment and regarding certain industries sort of being expensive and then, not allowing for the searcher and or the investor to make as high as returns as typically. So my background would be fit perfect for verticalized software and MSPs. But as I've had several conversations with searchers and investors in those markets, they've all for the better part told me that I better not spend my time there because of that's what's been hot the past 2 years and that's what's hot today. And by the time I start searching when I graduate in May of 27, hopefully, uh, unless the market changes, they all have told me no. What do you think about that? And if so, then I must probably build my right to win in anything related to B2B sales since that's my previous experience.
Yeah, I mean, same thing applies as like the undergraduate was asking me the question before, which is like the only thing that actually has the only way I've actually done well in life is being like deeply, deeply contrarian. And so, you know, if you're looking at a market that people are telling you that there's a whole shit ton of people already looking at, like, yeah, do not do that. Go figure out something else that like is completely off the beaten trail where you have conviction, but is, much more, virgin territory, which is hard to do given like how much money there is in the ecosystem at this point. But I would just try and be more creative, um, and try and come up with, when I was actually looking at, you know, investing in search, I would always say like, look, give me an investment thesis of like three industries that you think are ones that you want to pursue, and narrow it down geography wise as to where it is that you're willing to move to buy a business, and give me the analysis, right? And like I would judge whether or not I wanted to invest in the searcher in part based on how good that analysis is and how unique it was. Because I hadn't seen it before, because everyone else is like just copycatting, cut and paste from everyone else's PPM, right? Like, which
Hmm.
is nonsense, right? And that didn't mean that we would actually end up investing in that space, because honestly, once you start searching, God only knows what's going to happen. And
Yeah,
we might
most
end up
people don't
investing in
even
something
buy in their
completely different.
PPM.
Right.
Yeah.
No, 100%. You might invest in something completely different, which is fine. But as an investor, I want to see how you think, and I want to see like unique, creative analysis as to what industries and markets are untapped. Don't just show me what everyone else is already doing, because like I'm really not interested.
Okay. Any tips on building that creativity juice and finding those unique analysis, like reading The Economist, looking at macro trends? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, I would just really think hard about what everyone is doing and what's kind of opposite of that, honestly. Like, I just always like I'm constantly like swimming upstream and saying like, well, if everyone's over there, like what's undervalued? Like all that stuff over there is overvalued. If that's true, what's undervalued, right?
Okay. Thank you
Because
so
like
much.
honestly, like right now we're in the middle of a huge momentum market, and like the momentum will turn around at some point, right? And so what is that going to look like?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, Eduardo, looks like you might be the last one here. We got 2 minutes left.
Awesome. I'll close this out. Tom, it's good to see you in person. You spoke to my partner Julian Hamming in the past with Mosaic. So good
Okay.
to finally meet in
Okay,
person.
cool. Yeah.
Favorite artist, Dallas Willard, who is an author and a theologian, who's greatly impacted my faith. So that's my favorite artist of all time.
Awesome, man.
Question on from me, you're really loved kind of reading the back and forth between the Yale study and kind of your response to it. Maybe one initial question would be, I know we're out of time here, so I'll keep this one short. What has been, you're obviously very plugged into the investor community. What has been the general reaction to the Yale study, the newest one, uh, uh, that shows kind of a different view of returns in the investor community? Is it generally split? Half of us are like, that makes sense. Others are like, no, it's not, kind of on your camp, not my experience. What has been the reaction generally?
Uh, I think it's been pretty mixed. I think that, as I tried to point out in my response, I think like the actual analysis has a lot of flaws. Like, you know, so I'm not sure that people agree with necessarily how it was done. I do think that people generally do agree. I mean, one of the things that's like the most frustrating about it is he doesn't give you a time frame, so we have no idea when the data like actually was even collected.
Yeah.
But like the overall point of it is to say, hey, we're in this point, we're at this time where investment is exploding, returns are going down. Um, Searchers have way too much power. Like they're all getting funded. It used to be really hard to get funded. Now they all get funded, and they're like even like asking for better terms, and they're kind of arrogant, right? And so from the investment community, I think the overall reaction is, yeah, we need to take some like air out of the balloon for sure. And
Yeah.
so like if the study helps doing that, like that's we kind of agree with that. Um, I think I mean, a lot of them would say like, well, that's, my returns have been better than that. So like, I'm not sure it's really accurate, but yeah, I mean, I think, overall, there's an understanding of what AJ's motivation was. And like I said in my piece, like I generally agree with the motivation. I just don't necessarily know, I don't necessarily agree with the execution of it. I think people, they want to preserve like the enthusiasm, like what makes, search great. Even if at this point, some of that has already been kind of at least changed because of the maturation of the asset class. And I mean, part
Yeah.
of my point was like, hey, like every other asset class, great managers do great, and average managers don't do so. They do average, which isn't
Yep.
necessarily great, right? And so, like,
Yeah.
it used to be that every single search fund investor was making, 30% IRRs. That will not be the case going forward for sure.
Totally. Yeah. Super helpful. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. So I know we're at time. I want to honor your time, Tom. This has been awesome, Tom. Really appreciate
All
getting
right, man.
together, and it's great to learn from you.
All right, man. All right. I think I'm going to tune out with that. It's great seeing everybody. A bunch of people dropped off. See how this gets received. I'll try and do it again at some point if people want to do it. But for tonight,